Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. On this episode, we are reviewing MaxPeedingrods 94 to 04 Mustang coilover setup. Let's get into it. Let's open them up and see what we got. Okay, so we're going to get this stuff out and go over everything that you get in the kit, what it looks like, what I think about it. This is not a paid review, but I'll be honest. The reason I have these is, for one, I had a need for them, and for two, MaxPeedingrods reached out to me on my Instagram and said, hey, we'd like to send you some stuff to review in one of your videos because we like what you're doing. I'm like, all right. Well, I see that you have a coilover kit for 94 to 04 Mustangs that's fully adjustable, so why don't we check that out? So, this is what you get. There's going to be a link below for 15% off using my CPR Garage discount code. So they're helping you guys out too. So let's get into this stuff and see what you get. First of all, it looks pretty dang well packaged. Let me show you real quick. So it has like glued formed kind of styrofoam wall stuff over the top. Everything looks like it arrived in good order. You get a customer service card. Talks about some of the other stuff they make, or the other stuff they sell anyway. Don't know if they make it themselves. So what we have here is, here are the spanner wrenches for adjusting the coilover spanner nuts, 2 of them. Nice. This is a rear spring perch, which is adjustable height. So the rear technically are not coilovers, so they're going to be coils, adjustable spring perches, and then adjustable shocks. Pretty standard fare on Mustangs and stuff like that. Got a little card in there. What else do we got? These guys right here are going to be the front coilovers. So it looks like everything arrived happy and good. Here's the other spring perch for the rear. So that's what you get for your dollars. Let's get all this stuff out on the bench and check it out. That's gonna be it. Boom. The box was a little beat up, you know, UPS things. I think UPS were the ones who delivered it, so that left me a little bit concerned, but it looks like they packed it well enough that everything was in good order. So here's one of the rear adjustable collars with a, what looks like a rubber or polyurethane, probably rubber, isolator. I know that was weird that I just smelled it. So there's no instructions with these, so I'm going to show you how to put them on. My thing will be a little bit different because this is actually an 88 Thunderbird with basically 94 to 04 Mustang axle and suspension under it. So that's going to help me in a few ways, but there's going to have to be a few things that I'm going to have to modify on the car. Like these top strut plates I don't believe are going to be correct for my car, but I also have a 94 to 04 Mustang, so we can take a look at that and I can show you whether they're right or wrong for that car. So this is going to be the rear spring seat, height adjustable. This will be the rear coil spring, which should nest right on that isolator. So like I said, they're not technically a coilover, but here's your height adjustment for the rear. There's no bearing in here. That's something I'm noticing. So that means to adjust the height, what you're going to have to do is jack up the car a little bit on the frame or the body to take the weight off of it. And then what you'll do is go ahead and use your spanner wrenches on right here. Crank those nuts up and down to set the height and then lock it in. So this is going to be the rear shock here, which is height adjustable. Now this isn't going to change the ride height of your car because this is only a shock. But what it is going to do is you can set your, basically your shock height for whatever amount that you're lowered. Okay, and then lock it in. So nice threaded aluminum body. It's got a dust seal. Everything looks good on the shock. Looks like they are gas shocks because just a regular old hydraulic shock, when you push it down, it will not come back up on its own. Everything looks good here. Bushing looks good. No leakage from the oil seal, which I have heard about from you know, low-cost coilovers. Comes with good bushings. Now the cap on the top is going to be for the adjustment here, and we'll show you how to do all that. So basically this turns a valve, I think, inside of the shock that controls the rate that oil goes through it, which in turn controls your rebound and compression, how fast it goes. Basically, smaller oil hole makes it stiffer, bigger hole makes it softer. We're probably going to start at the preferred ride height I want and right in the middle with everything. Here is the coilover. So it looks like the preload is already set. We'll check that and see what they've got it at. And here is our aluminum machined plate at the top. Ugh. And it's got basically a Heim kind of ball bearing in here. I think they call it a pillow block. So there's no rubber bushing in the top part like stock. And it looks like, I gotta see which way this orients in there, but it looks like this bolts in solid. And then these guys right here are for your camber adjustment, which I need on this car because I have a little bit of an issue there. Again, adjustable dampening on the top, but it's only one way adjustable, so I believe that will change your compression and rebound the same amount. Here's your coilover shock. Again, everything looks good with that. Initial quality seems pretty dang good for, you know, the cost. So this is the jounce bumper right here. I don't know if you can see that, but when you compress the spring to its limit, that's what stops the shock from bottoming out on itself. And the other adjustment on here is going to be the height, which is sweet because you want to set your preload. Basically that ensures that when the suspension droops, this shock doesn't come loose and rattle around. So you want that set. The spring itself is what's going to determine how it rides, really. Okay? And then what you set here is your ride height, which should not affect the stiffness at all. Okay, so let's try to go over what I would want to know if I was watching this video. If there's other things you guys want to know, let me know down in the comments. A big concern with budget Chinese-made coilovers is from what I've seen from a lot of guys, a big concern, well, with any real budget parts, is this stuff's going to be broken right out of the box and defective. I have none of that here. Everything, like initial quality inspection, looks really good and fine. Everything is assembled how it should be. Everything is there. Nothing leaks, nothing's ripped, nothing's defective. That's a big thing I would want to know. There are no burrs on any of the threads. Everything turns how you would want it to. Now here, though, this is a budget set, so where do the budget savings come from? Well, I would say engineering, support, and instructions, because you can see that this is basically a shock slug, right? Now this very well could be the same part as this, I'm not sure. It's actually a little bit shorter, but this slug could basically fit a whole bunch of different cars. You're only changing what goes on the top and what mounts on the bottom. So you can use the same basic strut or shock slug on a whole bunch of different applications, and then you're only changing the knuckle mount down here, the spring, and the top mount, and they will work for a whole bunch of different things. So that's where I think the savings comes from. Also, the savings is in there's no instructions whatsoever, so they're not telling you how to set these up, how to adjust them, how to dial them in. You're on your own to figure that out. So these did have some preload on them, and what they call for is like 7 to 10 millimeters of preload. This is not meant to be a suspension adjustment. Like I said, this is just to keep things from basically rattling around like that when the suspension droops out. I also am curious to see what we have here as far as, is this just a metal shim or is this actually like a Torrington bearing? I'm betting for the cost it's not going to be a Torrington bearing, so we shall see here. I mean, looking at everything, I have no complaints about the quality. I'm not saying they're on par with $1,000 set of coilovers, but I have no complaints. So that is going to be just a single steel shim, which is acceptable. It'll keep it from wearing into that aluminum seat. But on higher end ones, you'll have a Torrington bearing here, which means you can actually adjust this with weight on it. Versus this, you're going to have to jack it up and relieve some of the weight to be able to adjust that. The upper is actually, it's going to be real hard to see, but there is a bearing, there is a sealed bearing in there, so that's what allows the spring to rotate as you turn. So the issue I have with these guys is, like I said, there doesn't appear to be any markings for the damper adjustment at all. So that is on you to figure out. There are markings for the camber adjustment, which it looks like they've got it. Oh, this one's not quite 0. We'll start them both out at 0 because we are going to have to adjust camber on the camper. We are going to have to adjust camber on this car. So I'm also going to have to anti-seize all the threads and spring pockets and everything because I somewhat live in the frozen north and this stuff is going to get corroded if I don't. If you live in a tropical climate or whatever, don't worry about it. Can't use this stuff without making a mess. It's just how it goes, folks. Okay, so now we will set the preload, which, like I said, they felt pretty good out of the box, but if you drive the car and it's going to get wet, you want to take this all apart and slather it up with anti-seize. Yeah, we'll wipe that off after we're done. So, with the spring sitting on here, basically want to tighten it until you've got no more up and down play. Think about it kind of like zero lash with setting rocker arms. A little bit more. Okay, so right there, can't move the spring up and down at all. Now, we're going to do 8mm preload, which I figured out is these two guys together. So what we're going to do is snug up our jam nut till it touches. Okay, about there. And then we are going to crank this guy to preload it until we can fit 2 spanners in between there, and that will be 8mm of preload. And we're there. That's 2 wrenches. 2 wrenches in the gap there. So then what we're going to do is lock the jam nut. And I just measured these with my handy dandy Harbor Freight caliper, and so the 2 wrenches sandwiched together is 8mm. The anti-seize thing, you're going to have to do that on any coilovers because they don't sauce them up with anti-seize because it's messy and evil. But it's a necessary evil in my climate. The only thing bad I would have to say on these, after all I've done messing with them, the lack of instructions and paperwork that comes with them. But if you poke around on MaxPeedingrods blog posts, that's where I found how to adjust the dampers and how to set the preload. So, dampers, and I already screwed this up and had to fix it. You can just click these with your fingers. You don't need the little Allen wrench that they send. And they come set full stiff. There is 24 clicks of adjustment here. Clockwise is stiffer, counterclockwise is softer. They recommend 0 to 16 for street settings and 16 to 24 for track settings. I like to start in the middle, as I said, and this is definitely a street car and I want a softer ride. So I put both front and rear at 12. So they come at 24, and it's kind of a stop there. You gotta watch it, because if you try to be a knucklehead, it will force past there. And then I ended up actually having to take the little valve out, and because it unthreaded away from the part that it moves, if that makes sense. It's a little 2-piece adjuster in there. But I was able to fix that easy enough. Luckily I didn't damage anything by being a knucklehead. But so they come full stiff at 24. I cranked them back 12, front and rear. We'll start there, and I'll make a little mark. It would be better if it had some kind of markings on here to tell you that. As you can see, I've got a bunch going on here. I'm de-mouse housing interior, finishing up the coilovers, all kinds of stuff. Great things are coming for Project Turdbird, so you're gonna wanna stay tuned for it. Though it is in the car and I have taken it for a drive, I can't final dial things in yet because I don't have any interior in the car, so there's, you know, a couple 100 pounds missing from the car, so it's not gonna set right, but super impressed so far. big thanks to MaxPeedingrods for sending that to me. In the next episode, what you're going to see us do is make some templates and make adapter plates to fit that Mustang suspension onto the turdbird, which is somewhat easier because the lower end of the suspension is already Mustang, along with wheels and tires and brakes and all of that stuff. But the upper part is still Thunderbird. So I'm going to show you what it takes to put Mustang parts onto a counterfeit Fox body, such as a Thunderbird Cougar, Fairmont LTD, Zephyr, all those other alternatives. Because let's be real, Fox body Mustangs are super overpriced right now. So stick around for that. You're going to want to see it. Thanks for watching, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody.